Hi, I'm Natasha and this is my Media Studies A2 music video evaluation. So just to start off with, as explanations as to why I did the song I did. The song I did was As Much As I Ever Could by City and Colour, which is more commonly known as Bring Me Your Love, and that sort of explains what the song's about really, which I found really interesting because it's about somebody who's in love with someone else, and in the song it's not reciprocated, or at least not yet. But the way that I chose to portray it is that it's never going to be reciprocated, and it's sort of in a more stalkerish, sinister way than the song, which was a more romantic take on the song, which I think gave me a lot to work with and a lot to play with really in how I was planning on filming. In terms of what I feel I could have improved, there was one shot in particular which I wasn't too pleased about, but I think I worked with what I ended up having in terms of the footage that I took, because I wanted to cover all grounds and have as much footage as I possibly could, just in case there were any difficulties along the way. But what I didn't realise was that sometimes it can be difficult to include an effect if the shot isn't long enough. So, for example, I wanted to have a fade to white shot near the beginning of my video when the camera tilts up to the blinds and zooms up into it, in order to indicate that the girl was only dreaming of her and this boy kissing and being together. But, however, the shot didn't seem to be long enough for that effect to work in that exact way that I had planned. So I decided to use a cross-dissolve shot after playing around and deliberating over which ones to use, which shot to use. But it did give a similar effect because of that wave that comes in. So I think that did make it obvious it was a dream. I hope that made it obvious that it was a dream. It wasn't what I originally wanted, no, but if the shot had been longer, it would have been perfect. But I do still think that it had the effect that I desired it to have at the beginning, so that was good in the end. I think I probably would have made a couple of my shots shorter as well, because I know that modern day music videos, the shots are quick and they're fast paced, all of them are. And you only get the odd indie band that will slow things down a bit, but I feel like that's the general feeling with indie bands. It is a lot slower and more mellow and less panicky and manic like pop songs are, say. So although I would have liked to, if I'd had the opportunity to go back, I'd like to maybe shorten some of the clips, especially the beginning one with my actor Tom, where he's sitting on the bed looking a little bit creepy. It would have been better, I think, to have shorter shots of that, because I think it would have looked more normal in the context. But on the other hand, it was an indie band and an indie song which was quite slow paced, so it wouldn't really have seemed right to have fast paced cuts as you might expect in other music videos, to put that in that music video of an indie band's one. I'd say that I liked the lip syncing, and I thought that actually did work very well. It was helped obviously by the fact that my friend Ollie was good at lip syncing and he knew the band and he knew all the words, so it didn't take me that many reruns of the shot to get it right. I didn't have nearly as much editing work to do as maybe some other groups did, therefore, because of that, because he knew exactly what he was doing. So that made it a lot easier for me, I suppose. I really liked the effects I used on the lip syncing as well. I really liked those. I thought it worked well with maybe a cold atmosphere with this light blue all over his lips. I used effects on some of the scenes with Rosie too, the stalker girl in it, the one who plays the stalker, where she had blood on her hands. I used an effect, a sort of grainy effect, to make her hands look a lot lighter, and maybe a bit distorted. I think it was a grainy effect. You can say it gave a grainy effect. And what I liked about it was that she did seem to have a distorted perception of the world, and it seemed that this shot also had a distorted perception of the world. So I thought that sort of worked well, complemented the character. As well as that, I like my shot of Rosie's hands covered in blood. I chose to include that because I wanted to show some of the film through her eyes as point of view shots, because I really like those, to give the audience a chance to just see through the stalker's eyes really. I also like the imagery I chose to use, just lots of pictures of Tom in different situations really, not just on maybe in school, some where he's just walking around near my house, which is where we filmed, some where he was walking around there. I tried to make the best use of these by including panning shots of the pictures that were stuck up on my garage wall. I also included extreme close-ups of them and a high-angle shot of the pictures being cut up, so that the stalker was left with just pictures of Tom, which is what she'd always obviously want, rather than him with anyone else. I tried to show the mid-shots of her cutting up the pictures too, so that the audience would fully understand what was going on and get to see it happening in many different ways rather than just one and maybe getting bored with that. Okay, so the next question is how it compared to a real life music video. I think that it does compare to a real life music video for an average indie song, because a lot of them are slow paced videos with a theme of sadness or misery, like I touched upon earlier. If it was a pop song, you'd be expecting something completely different to that, obviously. Understandably, you'd be expecting fun and dancing and drinking and things like that, but for a specific indie song like this, because within indie bands there could also be fun and parties, but that's also, they touch upon misery, I think, more than maybe other genres do. So I think it did fit in, and it was in keeping with the theme of an indie band that would be seen in modern day. Okay, so the next question is how it compared to a real life music video. I think that it does compare to a real life music video for an average indie song, because a lot of them are slow paced videos with a theme of sadness or misery, like I touched upon earlier. If it was a pop song, you'd be expecting something completely different to that, obviously. Understandably, you'd be expecting fun and dancing and drinking and things like that, but for a specific indie song like this, because within indie bands there could also be fun and parties, but that's also, they touch upon misery, I think, more than maybe other genres do. So I think it did fit in, and it was in keeping with the theme of an indie band that would be seen in modern day. So the last one is, how did you use media technologies in the construction, research, planning and evaluation stages? So first of all, I just want to talk about the filming equipment, particularly the tripod, because I found that very crucial in achieving the desired effects. For example, one of my favourite shots had to be a high angle shot, which was looking down at the floor where Rosie had been cutting up the pictures of Tom, and I wanted the pictures to fall in front of the lens onto the floor to emphasise the sheer mass of photos that Rosie had been taking of this boy Tom. It was key to the video's effectiveness, I feel, as were others, such as a shot where the camera panned across the room and then up to the blinds, like I mentioned earlier, which was to signify that Rosie had had a dream about him. So I only filmed one handheld shot, actually, and that was due to the fact that I had difficulty using the tripod on my bed for when you're supposed to think they're kissing, because it wasn't a smooth surface, obviously a duvet cover wasn't a smooth surface that the tripod's legs could actually rest on comfortably, so I had to do a handheld shot for that, but I tried to keep very still because the effect was not one that I wanted to be a shaky one regardless. I still wanted to basically give the same effect as a structured and controlled shot though, is what I mean, and so even if I wasn't using the tripod at the odd occasion, I did at every possible opportunity actually, which showed how key it was to my music video. The new HD cameras were very easy to use, and they allowed me to achieve higher quality footage overall, I feel. Onto the software I use, predominantly Final Cut Pro. It was a professional non-linear editing software application which was developed by Macromedia Incorporated and then Apple Incorporated. I found it relatively easy to use, to be honest, and once I had uploaded my footage onto it, I found that it was easy to add effects onto it, such as when I experimented with a ripple effect. But having said this, even though Final Cut Pro offered some interesting effects, I actually decided to settle on a cross-dissolve shot to convey that dream scene that I'd mentioned earlier, because often I found it was more suitable to have simple shots and they were more effective than these sort of futuristic ones that Final Cut Pro seemed to offer. But it worked all the same either way, but I think maybe it was a little bit more complex than I needed. I also used Adobe InDesign for the production of my digipack and my advert. I used Adobe Photoshop to edit my work and to be more creative with my background images. I found that program to be fairly unproblematic overall, and I felt like the editing wasn't too complex to understand, actually. I also used YouTube.com a lot, because it helped me decide what kind of route I wanted my music video to take. I looked at various other stalker videos for inspiration on YouTube, which I posted on my blog quite near the beginning of the coursework. I found that really helped, and I also googled the album covers and single covers of these, so I did have a fair round of knowledge on those songs. I also found that through using websites like YouTube, it was easier for me to see what other artists had chosen to do in their music videos, which provided me with personal inspiration on which direction to take mine in.